If you had asked me 5 years ago what a budget was, I most likely wouldn't have known how to answer. The fact is that during the COVID period, I became interested in everything related to economics, investments, personal finance, and among these also budgeting. So I can say that it is more or less since 2020 that I maintain and manage a budget on a daily basis. These past 6 years made me understand that to define an efficient budget, I would need two main important elements: traceability, so that I can keep track of all my expenses, and being able to define a target that, based on my needs, that can be also modified. These two points are important because out there, the majority of the apps that claims to be made specifically for budgeting are in reality simply expense tracker. They are excellent for tracking expenses and group them into categories, but they lack the fundamental aspect, which is the creation and the maintenance of a target. This is why for 6 years I've been using the same app after having truly tried a lot of them. The app in question is YNAB. The name is an acronym that stands for You Need a Budget. Right here you already understand that this app is oriented towards budget creation. The app is subscription based. Currently in Italy the monthly pay, I think, is around €9. I'm not sure about other regions of the world. I think in Canada is more or less about $15 per month. The thing that I really like about it is that you can share it with other people. So you can share it with, I think, up to 4 people. So that is good. YNAB allows the creation of a budget by category. It allows you to track expenses, your assets, and investments. The reason why I've been using this app for so long lies in its operation principle. It's based on the envelope logic. Imagine having an envelope, the kind that we use for sending letter, for example, except that instead of inserting a letter, you put money in the envelope and you write electricity on it. Well, congratulations, you just created a budget. You define a category and how much to allocate into it. The principle, in my opinion, is very effective because it forces you to sit down and decide how much to allocate to every category. I know it just may seem simpler to just download an app that acts as an expense aggregator. I don't have to sit down, analyze my past expenses, and create a budget. I think this is also related to a burnout issue. We often start with overly ambitious goals, trying to achieve results as quickly as possible. A comparison comes to mind with dieting or the gym. How many times have you started going to the gym or dieting, set yourself unreachable goals, and after a month given up on everything because you already find yourself in burnout? Here, in my opinion, the same thing happens with the creation and maintenance of a budget. The more sudden the changes in habits of spending are, the more unsuitable the budget will be in the long term. In my opinion, this happens because normally it takes a lot of energy to change life goals habits, and at the moment when a change needs to be made or a modification to our lifestyle, this seems even harder. My advice for those of you that wants to start budget today or start budgeting in general is to begin with small and gradual cuts or changes over time so it minimally impacts your routine. I wanted to make this brief introduction because I think that everyone today should have a budget, as I consider it a fundamental tool that brings many long-term benefit, and if it's used correctly, can also bring you a great deal of peace of mind. But let's get back to talking about YNAB. This is the main interface of the software. The software has a web version, which is the most complete, but it also has a mobile app, although it doesn't have the same feature as the web app. The two versions sync automatically. The main screen is divided into several sections. Today I'll talk about this section. Shows the available funds. By this I mean funds that are not assigned to any category. They are essentially unused funds waiting to receive a purpose. When your salary arrives, the funds will appear here, colored in green. The section in the top left is a menu that allows you to navigate between the various sections of the app. The screen you see now is the Plan section, which is used to plan and modify your target. Just below the section, you'll find the list of all your bank accounts, credit cards, and the tracking section for your investments. This section shows the available balance for each instrument and the list of transactions made. It's possible, if the bank is supported, to enable automatic expense synchronization. This section is the most important because it concerns the actual budget. Here you create your categories. I place this category in a macro category called Essential. Macro categories and categories are customizable. Once you have defined these groups, you can use them indefinitely. I created these years ago and the changes I make are minimal, perhaps to add or modify an entry. This section on the right side of the screen essentially serves as a summary for the month. Here you'll find this month's activity expressed in cost, an estimate of the budget needed for this month, and expected income. Let's say it's useful for understanding already at the beginning of the month whether there will be a problem covering all the expenses. The last section I wanted to tell you about is the credit cards one. Here you'll see the balances and usage of your credit cards. YNAB uses credit cards in a particular way, which is why I created a dedicated section in this video. So let's start creating our category. This is the fundamental step for creating our budget. If you are a beginner, I recommend that if you have access to the information, to use the average monthly spending to start defining a goal for a category. It's usually very easy for bills or fixed expenses, while perhaps for variable expenses like eating out or entertaining, it might require a little more effort. I also recommend starting with a limited number of categories, as it could be overwhelming, especially for those who are not used to maintaining a budget. Creating a category in YNAB is really easy. When you start a new budget, there are already some macro categories created for you. By clicking on the macro category name, you'll find a plus symbol. Write the category name and click Done. I personally, for fixed expenses, add the label monthly, so I know that every month those expenses are more or less the same. You can create as many categories as you want and name them in whatever way is most convenient for you. I know that in the beginning this step may seem complex, overcomplicated, but this is a process that it's done only once, and then it will not be required of you again. And furthermore, I'll give you a tip. If you create categories for annual expenses, like for example the car insurance, YNAB offers an excellent tool that will divide the expense month by month, effectively creating saving installment. A practical example, as I mentioned already, is the car insurance. It's paid once a year, right? The great thing about budgeting is that I know how much I have to pay, so I set aside the necessary amount every month so that I will not find myself without money at the time of the payment. To create a target, you need to click on the category you created, and on the right side of the screen a new section called Create Target will appear. By clicking on that button, a window will open in which you can enter your target for that category. This window is the one in question. At the top, you'll find a selector that allows you to choose the spending frequency, meaning where I will need this money. It could be weekly, monthly, annual, or you can customize it. The convenient thing is that if you have an annual expense, YNAB will spread it across each month automatically. In the I need section, you set the amount you'll need. The buy section indicates when you'll need to have these funds available. This function is not very usable if you receive only one monthly salary. In case you have multiple income sources, this function serves to prioritize the distribution of funds. Expenses that come first will be covered first by new funds. Rent, for example, on the first of the month is more important than the electricity bill that comes at the end of the month. Now this section is complex because it asks you how to handle these funds every month. So let's look at it in detail. By clicking on the drop-downs, these options will appear. Each option sets aside funds in a different way. The set aside option always sets aside the same amount every month. Regardless of whether I spend the money in that category, next month I will always allocate the same amount. This is used for bills or for putting aside savings, for example. Refill app instead uses the amount I define as a target. So at the end of the month, if I have $25 left in that category, I won't set aside $50 in this following month, but I will carry over the $25 and add another $25 to reach $50. This is used for expenses that are usually variable. I know that there are a lot of complicated concepts, but from here everything gets simpler. Just because what I showed you now is just the hardest part of YNAB. But I repeat, you do this only once, since once you've established your categories, you won't have to touch them again. Already here though, you should realize how powerful this software is and how many possibilities it gives you for creating your budget. Since you have created a budget, now you will need to assign the funds that have no purpose. What does purpose mean? YNAB considers that every dollars, every euro, every, let's say, resource must have a purpose. As I was telling you at the beginning, a budget must have a target, a goal. It follows that every currency, every euro that you earn must have a function, a purpose. If you think on this way, maintaining a budget will be easier for you. In fact, for example, if you have all the categories covered for this month and I have $500 left over, well, what can I do with this? You can save them, you can already assign them for the next month, you can create new categories, or you can decide to do whatever you want with it. The thing is that you know you have excess saving. But now let's go back to categories. I wanted to get back to talk about what you see on the main page. I had anticipated that each category has three main columns: assign, activity, and available. The first column shows me the fund I have assigned to that category for this month. The activity column shows me the expenses or how much I have withdrawn from that category this month. Remember, these are envelopes. Available shows how many funds I actually have available in that category. Since these are envelopes, I can move funds from one envelope to another. When the box in the available column is red, it means I have exceeded my budget, meaning I have spent more than what was assigned, in this case significantly. Orange boxes convey the same information but indicates that I have overspent by a non-excessive amount. Some orange boxes have a calendar symbol. This means I have upcoming expenses for which I have not assigned funds. If everything is going well, the box shows up green. As you can see, YNAB truly offers many functions and gives strong control over what is effectively your personal finance. This is also the reason why I keep my budget update daily. Since I started using YNAB, since I started using this software, I have never found myself without any funds when I had to face an expense. Now, getting back on how to create your budget, what I haven't shown you is how to add a bank account. Proceed to the left side, scroll all the way down and click on Add Account. YNAB gives the possibility to automatically import transactions for supported banks. In this example, I won't connect a bank, but I strongly recommend using the same automatic function. It will ask you for the name of the bank, or whether you are adding a credit card or simply an investment account, the type of account, and what the current balance is. This information is important and I will talk about it in more detail in the next part of the video.
Whispers.
The new account will be added and will show the current balance you entered a moment ago. As I was telling you, you can add different bank accounts. You can add checking account, which is the classic bank current account, the savings account, which is like a deposit account, and the cash account that clearly refers to the money you have in your wallet or under the mattress. Other accounts you can add relate to mortgages and loans, which I won't cover in this video, but YNAB allows you to calculate amortization and installments within the software itself. Additionally, you have the possibility to passively track your investments through tracking accounts. You can also add credit cards in YNAB. Now, credit cards are also seen as containers. Remember another rule: I cannot spend funds I don't have. If you use the credit card, I use it with funds I already have in other envelopes. This is another great advantage of YNAB because it prevents you from incurring in very high credit card debt. Let's see how it exactly works. Okay, so let's say that I go to the supermarket and I want to buy $70 of groceries, right? So I check my grocery category and I realize that I have $635 available. I therefore decide to pay with the credit card. What I'm simply doing is that I'm saying that I'm transferring this fund from the grocery category to the credit card category. I saw already that I have $635 in the grocery category, so I'm simply transferring money. So the grocery category will decrease by $70 and the credit card will end up with $70 more. This mechanism is essential and effective, and it allows me to pay the credit card balance in full. These are the main functions of YNAB. There are more complex functions and I haven't talked about because they are more advanced. Let's say that these are the basics of YNAB. What is missing now is how to manually add a transaction. It's the simplest part. Select your account, in this case select a credit card. At the top left you'll find the Add Transaction option. By clicking on it, a new window will open. Here you will select the transaction date, the payment beneficiary, the category, which is the envelope, from which to withdraw the fund, and an optional expense note and the amount going out, or coming in if it's an incoming expenses, or coming in if it's an incoming expense. Once the expense is added, the overall credit card balance on the left will increase. So I don't have anything more to add regarding the main functions of YNAB. However, I wanted to talk about other sections which actually relate more to expense monitoring and your assets. Since all this data that you effectively enter into YNAB, it gets analyzed, so it will basically give you statistics on your spending habits. The different sections are accessible from the section at the top left. The plan section, which I have already talked about, is the one used to manage your categories. The reflect section is used to monitor charts and statistics of your expenses. The all account section simply shows the overall list of transactions made for each account or credit card. Going into the reflect section, you are first presented with the spending breakdown part. This section shows you how much you have spent overall in the considered time period and how much each expense impacts the overall spending. It's a very useful chart because it helps you to understand where to cut first. For example, rent over the last 12 months has accounted for 27% of overall expenses. That is not a small amount, so if I would want to start cutting on something, I would start there. The number in the middle shows you how much I have spent in the past 12 months. Next, you are presented with the spending trends section. This is a bar chart that shows you the time trend and the variation of your expenses over time. All time intervals are adjustable as you wish. I choose the last 12 months for convenience. This chart is useful for answering questions like, why did you spend so much in May 2025? The answer is that I went on several road trips and travels. Each bar of the chart is divided by the macro categories you have preset. In my case, the green part relates to saving. The net worth section shows how much your assets have changed over time. It is very interesting because it divides the months into two columns, your assets and your debts. Hopefully, the growth of your asset is always positive. For those with high debts, it's great to see the reduction of the debt itself every month. The last sections relate to the age of money. It indicates how long on average it takes you to spend the money you have earned. In my case, I have 33 days, meaning it takes me a month and 3 days to spend my salary. This is fine because it means I'm able to cover 1 month with my 1 monthly salary. In conclusion, I can tell that YNAB is a powerful tool. For me today, it is essential to have it, and keep it updated daily. It helped me tremendously the first month I was here in Canada, because it allowed me to understand where I was spending too much and the type of cost that I was incurring into. It is an essential tool that I recommend to whoever has difficulties in managing money, or even for those of you who suffer from anxiety about whether this month they will be able to cover all their expenses. As I was saying earlier, I think that this tool should be known by everyone, and I'll go even further. I think that this tool should be even taught at school. Household finances are becoming increasingly difficult to manage, as there are always more concepts to know, and this tool always allows me to be always up to date to it. YNAB has allowed me to recreate that peace of mind that I had lost, and above all, I have never found myself missing any payment or with the inability to pay a debt. Unexpected expenses should be truly unexpected. Before YNAB, it often happened that I didn't have the money to pay my car insurance in time. So we have reached the conclusion of this video, and as always, I wanted to thank you all, and I really hope that this video was helpful. So please remember to subscribe, put a like to this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!